So I'm going to answer a few questions about how to tune the guitar. So a lot of the time we tune to 440, it's 440 Hertz, and that is actually the frequency of the note A, which would be like this string. So if you have a tuning fork, the fork would say 440 A. So here's my acoustic. It has a built-in Fishman pickup tuner. So if you have something like this, oftentimes it'll have an on-off button, which would be this one. So the green light indicates, well, it's blinking because it's on, and the green light would be when it's in tune. And so it's going to tell you what letter it is. It says it's a D. It says it's a D, and then you can see the little green one here says sharp. So the little red triangle on the right that's blinking there tells you sharp. Now the faster it blinks, the more sharp it is. So I'm going to have to, actually I want to tune this up to an E. So I need to twist this away from me to make it go up. So now we're in E flat, and it's blinking a little bit slowly, which means I'm close. I'm just going to keep going up until it's green. You have to know what the notes of each string is in order to tune to that note. So we have an E string, an A string, D string, G string, B string, and E. With guitars, you want to make sure that the strings are attached properly. They should be wound from the inside and around the tuning key, from the inside to the outside on all strings. So they're coming in and around from the inside. That way, if you have this arrangement, you turn away from you to go sharp, turn towards you to go flat. And then the opposite, you want to tune towards you to go sharp and away from you to go flat. Now the tricky thing about guitar is that there's a thing called intonation. And intonation is basically whenever you use a different fret, it might be getting more and more out of tune. And the way to check that is with the 12th fret harmonic. So I've got these two dots here that indicate the 12th fret. I'm going to play between the 12th and 13th fret. If you just lightly rest your finger on that, above that fret, you get what's called a harmonic. And these 12th fret harmonics are an octave above the open string. So the open string, 12th fret harmonic. And that's the guitar creators use that to place this piece of metal right here. So if they use that to know where to put this, and this note should be the same as if you played the 12th fret. Okay, so it's pretty close. And then you have the bridge down here, and the bridge is also the adjustment. So with acoustic guitars, you can't really adjust this bridge. So if this intonation were off, I would have to file down or get a whole new bridge. So as I've said, the string closer to you, if you play the 5th fret of the string closer to you, and the open string of the string one away from you, that should be the same note. Now we can put our finger on that string we're just tuning, play the 7th fret, and now the 7th fret is the same as the open string closer to you. We're going to check that and make sure that's in tune. You can tell that this sounds a little bit wavy, whereas this does not. That sounds pretty good. That sounds a little bit wavy. So I'm going to check the A string 12th fret harmonic. There's a little bit of buzz because the guitar's old. Well, it sounds to me that the 12th fret is more flat than the 12th fret harmonic, which means I should tune my A string a little bit sharp. So I'm going to bring the A string up just a tweak. And that's not going to fix this problem, but it should fix this problem. That's better. So now I know my A string's a little bit off, and there's really nothing I can do about that except for compensate by making my A string a little bit sharp. And even though I've adjusted it sharp, you can't really tell. There's not really much sound wave there, and there's not. Now we fixed that problem, so now the 7th fret's in tune. Let's see what the tuner says about my open A string. Still says it's okay. How about that E? Good. So we just keep going up with this 5th fret, 7th fret pattern. 5th fret. Can you hear all those waves? And so it's very important that as you're tuning, you want to stop the strings from vibrating before checking again. Because if I don't stop the strings, then I'm not really going to know what's happening. And they call that a sympathetic string vibration. Now be careful not to bend, because sometimes if you squeeze too hard, you can accidentally bend. And that's not going to be good for tuning. Same thing on the 5th fret. When you're checking your 5th fret tuning, make sure you're not squeezing so hard that you're bending that low string. You want to push directly straight down so you're not bending this string at all. Same when you're checking your 12th fret. Now to achieve the best tuning, you want to strum the same way that you play. So if I'm going to be playing kind of aggressively, then I want to tune aggressively. And you'll notice that if I hit the strings hard, it's going to think it's sharp. So that's why it's important to tune in the way you play. Alright, so it's our tendency to be able to distinguish a flat note more easily than a sharp note. And so how that's useful to us is if we're tuning our strings and it sounds really close, we know we're out of tune, but we can't tell exactly whether we're sharp or flat, it's a good idea to intentionally go flat and bring it up from there. And it's okay if you've gone too far. Don't second guess yourself. Sometimes you're still flat, but your ear might think it's still sharp, and then you go back flat again. So don't reset until you know that you're too sharp at that point. So now I'm too sharp, but I don't really know yet. I'm going to keep going sharp. Alright, I'm definitely sharp, so I'm going to bring it back down to flat. Wiggle the string a little bit. Now I'm a little bit flat. And sometimes playing them together helps. And sometimes playing them individually will allow you to tell which one is which. Sounds a little bit sharp. And then if you use your tuner, the tuning note is G, the open string is G. So the tuner says it's good. Now when we get to the B string, we can't use this 5th fret, 7th fret anymore. We have to go to the 4th fret of the G string, which is now our open B. So it's a little bit flat. And we can't use our 7th fret of the B to check the G. We have to use the 8th fret. And let's check the intonation of the B string. The B string is sharp compared to the harmonic, which means I would need to tune the string a little bit flat if I were to play up high on the neck. But if you're just going to be playing open strings, you don't need to worry about that compensation for the intonation. So So the last one is the E string, 5th fret of the B to the open E. And I'm going to stop all the strings from ringing, because just as I'm playing these two, it's making all of them ring. So you need to make sure you block all the strings from ringing. Now you can keep your tuner plugged in if it has a bypass function. That way you can play your guitar live on stage, and your tuner is going to read you what the notes you're playing. So you can tune if you had a long note. You can see it on your tuner and it'll come through the sound system. Or if you have a volume pedal, or if your tuner does not have a bypass function, then when you turn on the tuner, it cuts your signal from the amp. So you can tune quietly, really quickly, and then turn off the tuner and you're back to playing. So those are the tuners that have an input and an output 1/4 inch. So now I've checked all my strings, and now it's important to check your opposing strings. Because a lot of times what happens is if I'm tuning to my low E, and my low E is a little bit off, I use my E to tune my A. My A is going to be a little bit off. Then I tune A to the D, it's going to be even more off, and etc., all the way up. So by the time you get to the high string, it no longer matches the low string. So it's important to skip strings and keep an eye on your tuner. Oh, and the other thing is that this is a fixed bridge, so there are no springs involved. Therefore, the tension of the strings do not affect the other strings. But if you had a whammy bar or an electric guitar that has what's called a floating bridge, you are going to affect all of the strings with every adjustment that you make. And typically what happens is as you make one string tighter, you're going to make the other strings looser. Therefore, the one you're making sharp, the other ones are going to go flat. And it's a good idea to start with your lowest strings, because these are going to have the largest effect on your other strings. So that's why it's good to start from the bottom and work your way up. And even though this is a fixed bridge, I could still have an impact. So I was bringing all these other strings up in pitch, and it's caused my lowest one to go down in pitch. And it's not by much. It's like teasing that green light. So now let's check. That's better. How about the A string? So I'm going to check the open A string to the 2nd fret of the G string. Sounds good. Now the B string, you're going to have to play the 3rd fret to get a D. Sounds a little bit sharp. So let's check our tuner and make sure our D is in tune. D is in tune is my 3rd fret. It's a little bit sharp. So we'll bring that down just a little bit. Or you can wiggle the string. It's better, but it still sounds a little sharp. Now we're going to check if you know your chords, you want to make sure that every chord is in tune. And not every chord is going to be perfect. You have to find a happy medium. E sounds good. There's a little bit of wobble in there for my A. D is a good one to tune because it only uses 4 strings. And the other, if you don't have to play the full chord, you can make that top one a 5th fret. So you have open 5th. Open 5ths, basically a power chord. It's easy to hear for the out of tuneness. Doesn't sound so bad. And C is an important one. Because a lot of the time there's a clash between the A string playing the C and the open G string. And again, that has to do with your intonation of your guitar. So the most out of tune chords are going to be C and E major and G, because that is a wicked combination of fretted notes and open strings. So if your guitar has messed up intonation, the G chord is going to sound specifically out of tune, and the C chord. So just keep playing these chords and make minor adjustments to find a happy medium, because not every chord will be perfectly in tune. Well, I hope these tips helped. Have a good day.